Hi, and welcome to another episode of Starship Gaming, and today we are going to talk about one particular game. And since it's the month of October and Halloween is coming up, I thought I'd take a moment to talk about the PS1 game, Casper. And I know what you're thinking, why of all games did you pick to talk about this particular one? Well, there's a few reasons why. Let's start with the basics. This game, Casper, was released for the Sony PlayStation 1, the Sega Saturn, and eventually the Game Boy Color, and it is one of several versions. Released in 1996 and based on the 1995 film of the same name, which in turn was based on, well, classic cartoon shorts of the same name, this game seems to have a wide... Let me rephrase that. People have a wide opinion, a wide range of opinions about this game. They could go from frustrating to they love it to what? Now, like I said, there were several other versions of the game. The game itself, or I should say the concept, was originally released for Super Nintendo, and then eventually there were more versions made, and then of course the one that most people know of is Casper for the PS1, which eventually got its own greatest hits version, and of course the Sega Saturn version is almost the same, if not, very little differences. So let me start out by saying that the reason that I wanted to talk about this one is because recently I started playing it again and I beat it. And the thing about this game is, well, it's not particularly memorable, but it did well enough that it got its own greatest hits version for the PlayStation 1. In all honesty, I found this game to be somewhat frustrating yet fun and challenging at the same time, but mostly frustrating and repetitive. How it got a greatest hits, I'm not sure, but apparently it sold enough copies to get a greatest hits release. Sometime around, I'm going to say 1997 when the greatest hits release was released. Might have been 98, I'm not exactly sure the release on that one, but it did indeed get a greatest hits version. I'm going to say probably late 97, 98 that it did. Of course, in the game you play as Casper the Ghost, and you basically just travel around the house. There's a lot of puzzles, a lot of switches that you have to flip, and, well, that's pretty much the game, is problem solving. Puzzle solving more specifically. So basically, in the very first level, your first job, or mission I should say, is to find a gift to present to Kat and her father so you don't scare them. Of course, there's a couple things in the game that annoy me. Of course, there is the enemies, who happen to be the three ghosts who dwell in the house. Fatso, Stinky, and Stretch. For example, when you first start the game, if you go to your left, you keep going and you go into the final room. At the very start of the game, you'll run into Fatso and he'll be like, "Feed me, Casper, I'm hungry." And then he'll proceed to chase after you, in which leads to an actual kitchen filled with plenty of food to feed Fatso. I mean, does he not go into that room or what? Yeah, I know, I'm overthinking it, but I'm just trying to state, And then, of course, there's Stinky, who dwells in one room, and, you go in there, and he starts throwing green stink balls at you, which honestly look like green balls of energy, but they can do some damage to you if you get hit by them. And the thing about these rooms that you go into that have one of the three ghosts in them, they don't really have anything helpful. Some of them do, some of them don't, but they don't really progress you any. You actually spend time trying to unlock one of these rooms that has Stinky in it, and then there's nothing in the room. It's just Stinky, you know, you go in there, you got yourself into a trap. And then when you open chests, you'll run into mostly Fatso, but, you know, one of the three ghosts, and they'll do damage to you, they'll jump out of the chest, and you don't really particularly have enough time to get out of the way. Just a split second if you can actually do it. But of course, the chests have something inside of them that you can use, and, you know, they could be either helpful or not very helpful at all. Now, the one positives of the game is that, well, I like how they brought back a lot of the original voice cast. Well, voice cast from the movie, that is. And another thing I really like about is it has, of course, a save system, which, you know, you really couldn't complete this game in a single sitting. Unless you were a very experienced player, this game could take you quite a long time to beat. I would like to say this, however. It's a game you should at least play once in your life. At least once. Because to actually understand my thoughts and frustrations on the game, don't take my word for it. Just actually buy yourself a copy, whether you want to play the PlayStation or the Sega Saturn version, and try it out. You might like it more than I do. You might hate it more than I do. I don't particularly hate it or love it. I'm just okay with it. I'm okay with it existing. I'm just okay with it. And by any means, it's not a bad game. If anybody tells you it's a bad game, then they're lying. Honestly, my philosophy is there is really no such thing as a bad game, just a player who is bad at it. I mean, unless it's a broken game or incomplete, then that's the only exception. But there really is no such thing as a bad game, just bad players who have their own stuck-up opinions of a game. Which, you know, everyone's entitled to their own stuck-up opinions, but, you know, the game's not bad. And don't let anybody tell you that it is bad, because it really isn't. Now, if you did enjoy this game, there were a couple other Casper games for the PS1. Not a whole lot, but a few more that you can give a try. Of course, they're a lot different than this one. They're not the same. They don't have the same layout as this one, I should say. And there were also a few on PS2 if you want to give them a try. And in case you are wondering and you want to happen to pick up a copy of this, as long as you have a PlayStation 1, a PlayStation 2, or a PlayStation 3, this game will play in it. So if you have a PS3 sitting around, you say, oh, I can't play it, I don't have a PS1, and you didn't know that your PS3 was backwards compatible, try it. Just try it. Seriously. And I almost completely forgot, there is actually a 3DO version of this game. And I think a lot of the reason why is that if you look at the library for the 3DO, there are a lot of games that came from Universal, or I should say Universal Games. For example, there were some, one for Jurassic Park, and there was some, that were developed in part by, but I don't know if that's just ironic or what. But there is a 3DO version if you want to give it a try, which I don't know anyone who has a 3DO anymore. I did about 10 years ago, but you know. So, like I said, give it a try. You may love it, you may hate it more than I do, or you could just be okay with it existing, like I am. And if you have any more ideas of games, or it doesn't have to be PS1. I know I do a lot of PS1, and the reason why is I'm a PS1 collector, and I figured this year I would cover quite a few, so I have plenty of space freed up next year to cover more if I do decide to continue this show into next year. I don't know if you saw our last video. There was an important message in our last video, and I think you really need to watch it and stick around for the message at the end of that video. That was the Resident Evil video that we did in the previous episode. But if you're watching this like a year from now and I'm still going, then evidently something worked. But check that last video, please. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Of course, this is October, and we will be doing spooky stuff all month. So don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out. If you do, it encourages me to make more videos and make faster, come out with them faster. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell if you want notifications of when we do more awesome videos. And until next time, I will see ya.